Okay. All right. So let me share my screen. And then maybe, you know, what we can do is let's build a small game. Since it's a small group, it will be fun. All right, let me share my screen. All right, do you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, let me know if you want to increase the size. Yeah, I have a big desktop, which means usually the fonts go small. Okay, so conditional rendering, as I said, you know, React, there are 5 or 6 things you need to learn. Once you learn them, that gives you so much power, right? So a conditional rendering is pretty important. Imagine you have a button called start. So let's say I'm going to create a game called, let's say, I don't know, it's called, have you ever played a game called Guess the Number? Any of you? So where I
No.
so where I give you when I was little, we used to play a lot. Basically, I would give somebody, say, hey, can you guess a number, right? And I have to give you give a range, let's say between 1 and 1,000. Okay, and then that person gets a number, but won't tell me, right? So I have to guess the number. Say, hey, did you guess 100? And that person's not supposed to say, um, if it's a matching, then it would say, yes, that's the number. Otherwise, it would say lower than that or higher than that, right? So then this way I would know if 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 the number he guessed is higher than 100 or lower than 100, right? Uh, so we can build something like that, okay, today. Let's call this guess the number game, okay? All right. And then we can have a button called start. Well, just call it start, I guess. So when I click on this button, that starts the game, right? Okay, so how does it work? So we will have something here that is, let's say if there was a tag call, we can start before even we have a functionality. Let's understand how the conditional rendering work, because that's very important, right? Because that's the objective of the game. So we will have a state. You guys are probably familiar with this syntax now. Use state. Yeah. Okay. And then always define your state in the beginning, right under the function and before you return, right? So we can say, let's say the name of the state is const, let's say is started or game on. I don't know, what's the best way to say? Since it's a start button, is started, okay? And set is started equal to new state. And then we can have a false, which means it's not started yet, right? Okay. So we have the state which kind of tracks whether I have a this game is started or not, right? So conditional rendering is about, you can say if the game is started, then don't render the button, render the game. But if it's not started, render the button, right? So I can have game. All right. So right now I can see both. Obviously, we're going to implement the game, but we're just going to show the area where the game would be there, right? So the game is the area where the game will be playing. But you can't have both at the same time, right? Either you have a start button or game, right? Can't have both. So here we will need a conditional rendering, and the conditional rendering is nothing but so remember, whenever we want to do something dynamic, it's going to be within that curly brackets, right? Everything that is outside curly bracket is basically static content, right? Everything that is inside the curly bracket is a dynamic content. Okay, so here we can say is started, which means if the game is started, then we would say end. End means show this. So we can say if the game is started, show this. So you see, the game is gone because it's not started. So it's not going to render this, right? Similarly, I can say if it's not started, then show this. Okay, let me format this. Okay, and it's a simple thing. So we can say if it's started, show this. If it's not started, so this is represents not, then show this, right? If I make this true, I would see game. If I make this false, I would see the button, right? So initially we want the button because the game is not started. All right, any questions? All right. So how do we start the game? Anyone, any idea? How do we start the game? Since it's a smaller group, I'm going to ask a lot of questions. You guys are on the hook now. So how do we start the game? We learned about some of the other stuff, right? Last time. So just think about just whatever comes in your head first, just throw it out. How do we start the game? How do I implement starting the game?
On click buttons.
Yes, on click button, right? So all I need is on click button, right? And equal to some sort of handle. I'm going to call it on start handle, right? Which we haven't created yet. So we're going to create it. Always do it right after the state. Never do it before. Right. So this would be a function on click handle. And what it will do is pretty simple. This will, because it's a start, we can just make it true, right? Which means as soon as I click on it, it makes it started, which means it initially is false, it makes it true. So now if I click on this, the game shows up, right? Obviously, I cannot go back because assuming the game is going on, and then when game ends, it will somehow set this to false again. And then I'll go back to that state. Sometimes there are multiple states, right? There's not only one state, but maybe, typical flow of the game would be like you start the game, and then, so you click on the start, you play the game, right? There may be a pause button, or you may have end the game, you may see the score, and then you said, okay, and there'll be a button say, I want to play again or something, right? And when I click on it, it will take me to the game again or something like that, right? But this is a simple view where you can do this. Okay. Okay. So that's all cool. Now let's implement the game itself. So this game, this is where we're gonna build our game. Okay. So let's build inside. So how are we gonna do this? So guess the number, right? We're gonna have an input box where you can enter the number. There may be some sort of instructions. So let's say have an instruction. Okay. Guess a number between, we're just gonna hard code this 1 and I'll just say between 1 and 100. Let's say H2 instead. H2. All right. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, so initially, we'll have start. When we click on it, it says guess the number. Obviously, we need to provide that input box, right? Make sure you type with, I'm just gonna wait for a few minutes. Let's just type this in. Okay, I don't want you to fall behind. So I just type this in if you haven't done so. Let me know once it's done. I think we can take it slow. Once you finish it, we can add things one by one. I'll give you some time in between. And it's actually a fun game. All right, so it looks like both are done. Okay, cool. So now let's build a functionality, right? So the first thing we're gonna do in here is we can build some, we can have some input, right? This is the where we enter the number. And by default, it's type input, so I can type something. And then I can have a button here. Okay, so let's have a button called okay, or guess. Okay. So what I'll do is I would have to do something like this, right? And I would say click on guess. And then what would happen is that once I guess it, it will tell me two things. It will say, well, there are only three conditions that could happen. One is the number that I've selected is matches the guess number, right? The number that I've selected is, let's say, higher than the guess the number, or the third condition is would be lower than a number, assuming that we are entering a number. Like what if somebody enters garbage here, right? Some string, then but we assume that whoever's entering is mindful that they need to enter a number. They would enter a number, and then we compare, right? So again, in the guess, we have to have on. So what do we need? We need a state, some sort of state, right? We need multiple things. We would need here, always plan for things, right? So I would need what? I would need a number, right? That we have guessed. What else would I need? I would need the number that I have guessed, right? We're gonna call this a target number. Okay. Guessed number. We would need a guessed number, and then that is it. I'm trying to think what else we may need. So you would enter the number, you click on guess, it will compare with the target number, and it will, based on that, it will give you the status. Okay, so let's create these, right? So const target set target. I'm just too lazy to say number, so we're just gonna initially let's pick a number, fixed number. We can also change that, right? But we're just gonna fix it. User had guessed 55. It's no fun in just having a fixed number, but for now we will do that. Later on, we can actually add a number. We can have a dynamic number, which means it will randomly pick a number for you. Okay, which is more fun. And then we will have another state, which is called guessed, and set guessed. Okay. This one we don't say anything yet. We don't say it's true or false. If we don't provide anything, it's usually undefined. Okay, and we want that because we want to have a distinction between whether I guessed it right or wrong, or I haven't even guessed, right? So, sorry, this will be a number, but my bad. So if it's not guessed, it is going to be undefined. Once you guess it, it's going to be some sort of number. All right. And then whether I have guessed right or wrong, it's going to be depending on the comparison, right, of those two numbers, which we can deal with it later on. Okay, so knowing this, what we're going to do is when we click on the button, which is obviously guess. So there are a couple of things we need to do. Remember last time we built this application called to-do list, right? And we dealt with input box. Anyone remember what was the event inside the input box that we need to have? Like button, we already know, on click, right? You guys know what is the event for input box? So when I type stuff in, okay, it's on change. So I would say on change equal to on on change the guess, right? So we're going to create this here, function on change guess, which means when I type it in, it will remember, it will capture this, the guest, right? Well, actually, we wouldn't need another variable. Const. We call it entered. Why this one? I'll tell you why. Because let's say once we start typing in, right? Let's say I type 1. I don't want to set that as guest, right? I want only set that as guest when I click on that guest button, which means I need a variable that where it holds whatever I'm typing in, right? That will be the enter. Okay. So here on change, which means when I type it in here, right? At that point, it will get called. And this is a very standard pattern. So what we'll do is, which is on enter. So I would say set on set entered, right? And this is last time we learned this, right? We would say there is an event that gets passed from here, right? Which means if I'm typing in here, it basically sends event to that. And so this would be event dot target dot value. Okay. And actually we can, if I want to see quickly what it is, right? I can just have a div here. And then I can see what is entered. Right? So if I start this and if I enter 1, you see it says 1 and 2, 3. So it's holding the value that I'm typing in. It's not the guessed value yet, right? But it's a value that, and I can see it's printing the value, which means this entered has a value that is being typed in. Okay. And this is a pretty typical pattern when you deal with input boxes. So you just have to remember this. Okay, and then when you click on the guess button, at that point, we'll just take the whatever the value that the entered has, and then we're gonna make that into guess, right? So here we will have to have an on click button, right? And this will be on guess. Let's say on guess handle. So function on guess handle. So all we have to do is just take the set guess, and then we would say enter here, right? Okay, and if I just use guessed instead of entered here, this way what happens when I type it in, I don't see that, but as soon as I click on guess, that value would show up here, right? So this is that value. Okay, any questions? Let's just type this in if you haven't done so. I'm just gonna leave this open for a few minutes.
I am so sorry to interrupt, but my cat just spilled my water bottle all over my laptop. So I'll be back. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. We'll
I'll
just
be back.
okay.
Yeah, I'll try to come back in a bit, but yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so Raheem, since only you here, let's figure this out. So how would you work? So now you have two numbers, right? You have a target number, which is 55. And then when you click on here, you are setting the guess number, right? How do you determine how do you determine if you met if it's the three condition that I mentioned, right? Is the guess number, is the target number is matching the guess number, or is it higher or lower? How do we determine that? So what I want to do is underneath here, I want to show something like this. Higher, please. Okay. So if it's, when I click on it, and if the number, let's say I pick 12, right? And I already know the number is 55, which means I would say higher, please. If it's, if I type 100, then it would say lower, please. If I type 55, then it would say
Correct.
you won or something like that. So how do we do that? So you get the idea, right?
Not really.
Okay. So
I mean, I got the idea, like on how, but like in practicing it.
okay. So remember this conditional rendering that we learned? We use the same conditional rendering over there, right? So let's do one thing. So we're gonna do, remember conditional rendering is nothing but we have a curly brackets, then you put the condition, right? So you can say, if this condition meets, I want to show this, right? So here I would say, if the target is greater than guessed, end, I would say higher, please. Right? Make sense?
Got it. Makes sense. Got it.
Then I can put another one where I would say, if it's lower than this, then I would say
Lower, please.
lower, please. Right? And then another one would be, if it's equal, then I would say
Correct.
you won. Okay. Targets constant. Oh, it's supposed to be double equal, triple equal sign like that. Okay. Okay. So let's play this. So now if I click on this, and let's say if I say 12 and guess, it says higher, please. All right, which is true. If I say 60 and enter, it says lower, please. Right? But if I say 55, oh, was it 55? Why is it not printing? That's strange. What's the deal here? If it's matching. Okay, let me format this. Why is this happening? All right, do you see anything?
No.
All right, let's see. So basically it should, because 55 is a target, right? And guess this. So let's print that. Let's do some debugging, right? So we would do, we would first print target. This is how you debug. So we would say div target div, right? And I would just say target here. Okay. Yeah, Mira.
Hello.
Yeah, so so basically we have a small crowd today. Melissa was here, but I think her cat dropped some water on her laptop, so she just had to leave quickly. She'll be back. But basically what we're trying to do here is we are trying to build a small game called Guess the Number, and using React, and we are learning the couple of things. One is the conditional rendering, right? Which basically means if I want to print something on here, right, I have to provide a condition, and then only it would render. So for example, I have defined this state called is started, right? And I set it to false. And so if you look at this sentence here, it says, not this one, this sentence. Yeah, this sentence, sorry. It says if it's not started, and then this exclamation mark, which means not. So if it says, if it's not started, then you print a button, start, right? So obviously it's not started because it's false. So it's printing this button, okay? But when I click on it, which is a start handle, when I click on it, what it does is it makes it true, which means the game is started, right? And then this would automatically hide because this no longer meets that condition. So it would hide itself. And I have another area where it says, once it's started, show this stuff, right? So when I click on here, it shows all this stuff and then hides the button start, right? And inside I have a simple game called guess the number, right? And I have three variables. One is called target, which means computer has picked a number, 55 in this case, okay? And then I have two other state. One is called enter. So when I guess something, I start typing, right? As I type in, this enter updates with that number. And then the guessed is basically, once I click on the guess, it takes that entered and then makes it the guessed value, okay? And then here, I am comparing if the target, which is 55, if it's greater than the guess number, I would say, hey, please enter a higher number, because the objective of this game is to finally guess the number. And usually the way they play is number of tries, right? So if let's say try one time through to, you're supposed to guess the number in 5 or 6 tries, right? Depends on the range, obviously. So when the user clicks on guess, it would compare with a target and guessed, and if it matches, then you would say you won. Otherwise, it would say higher or lower. So let's play this. So let's say if I enter 12, and I would say guess. So it's a higher place, right? Because 12 is obviously lower than 55. Let's say if I say 50, then still say higher, please. 54 will still higher, please. 55 somehow is not working. It's supposed to say you won. So this is not working. I don't know why, but we can figure this out. That's, programming is all about figuring things out. So another thing we're going to do here is we can also print the guessed number to see okay. So now we're going to start, and I'm going to enter 55 and guess. So they're both are matching, but this condition rendering is not happening. Okay, one thing I would do is just a hunch. Okay, if this doesn't work, it is possible. I already know why it's not happening. Because I'll tell you why. The way we define this as a number, right? But when you enter this inside here, this, when I guess something, it's actually gives you what is it called? A string, right? So what we want to do is we want to have a both. So it's comparing string to a number, right? And that's why. But when you do a greater than and less than, at that point it actually converts into a number. The JavaScript automatically does that. But when I say equal, it doesn't do that. So what I want to do is convert them into a number. So how do I do that? So what I'll do is I want to convert to integer. So there is, if you ever get stuck, there's a JavaScript convert to integer, and there's a function called parse int, which is like this. Okay, parse int. Just gonna copy it, and all I need to do is wrap the guess with parsed int. Let's remove this here. Okay. That's fine. All right, so now if I do 55 and guess, it would say you won, because it's now really comparing number to a number, not a string to a number. So, all right, so we don't really need this guessed and all that, so we already know now. So, okay, if I do 56, it would say lower, please. If I say 54, it would say higher, please, right? Okay. I know for Amira, for you, how do we do this? I'm gonna give you this URL, copy the code. I'm just gonna put it in the chat. And what you want to do is just copy the code and put it in your whatever the box is, right? So this way you don't have to type the whole thing. and then run it.
Thank you.
React is based on about 5 or 6 concepts, right? React is actually very simple once you understand. Obviously, it depends a lot on your JavaScript knowledge, but there are 5 concepts, right? If you understand it more thoroughly. The first is the concept of defining state, which is this use state, right? The second concept is conditional rendering, which is actually relatively easy. You would put a condition and then you say end this, which means if this condition met, then render this, otherwise don't render it, right? Which is pretty simple in a way. The third concept is we looked at last time where you can have repeating something. So let's say if you have an array or something, and then you want to show all of these elements of the array, so you can loop it through. Remember, we do the map function on that array and printed those values, right? When we did the to-do list, we had printed all the to-do items, right? So that's a third concept. Fourth concept is which we're going to learn next. Maybe I'll just do next time because it's just not a lot of people here today. I don't want to, because if without that concept, a lot of people are going to be confused, which is called use state, which is probably one of the most important concept in here. If you really want a tighter control over this application, you can do a lot with the use state. So that's the next thing.
We've already done the use state.
Sorry, use effect. My bad. Use effect.
Oh.
We learned so similar to use state, there is thing called use effect. And then there's some other stuff like if you can see like you use, there's a callbacks, context, debug value, and all that stuff. But if you can understand use state and use effect, this too, this should be good enough to at least do some basic stuff, right? The rest are kind of unique stuff for some conditions, right? But yeah, if you understand these 5 concepts, you can do React. So in a way, it's actually pretty simple. As long as you know JavaScript and some HTML, you can do this pretty well. Okay, as you can see. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is when you win, okay, after you win, you want to go back. You want to say, hey, do you want to play again? So not the start button, but we want to say something like this. Something like this, okay? So, but this should only come in a picture when you start the game, you win the game, and then it would say play again. And what happens when you play again? When you say play again, which means you restart the game, right? So how do we do that? Any idea?
Creating another button?
No, we already created another button.
Oh,
There's a button for play again.
First, we need to remove the previous score.
Okay. So, yeah, we need to remove the previous score and all that stuff, which is pretty important. Yeah, that's a good point. So we need to reset stuff. Okay, so we need to reset. We need to reset target. We need to reset entered. We need to reset guessed, right? That all should go back to whatever it was before. And then we also and then we don't want to get out of this. So we want to have it started to be exist, but there has to be some condition that says play again should show up. And then when I click on it, it should go away. So how do we do that? Right? If I say, if it started show, then it always shows here when the game is running, right? If I say if it's not started show, then there's already a button called start, right? So I don't need it. This is initial start happens right now, it's here. So we want to hide this when this start happens, right? Once this should not show up at this point as well. The only time it should show up is once you win and guess it right, and then you would say play again. Okay, so we need another state that says you have won the game, right? Right? Is, or okay, has won or something like that. How do we say that? I just say when, set when equal to use state. And so initially we have an empty state. So if win is if user wins, so we can say if win, then only show this button, right? Which means it's not going to show. And then when I start, it still doesn't show. When user wins, when he would type 55 and click, at that point, that sets the value to be to win. Okay. And then once you win, you can do that. So actually instead of win, we can simply do this. If actually, you know what, I don't need a win for now, because you can do it with using a win, but I'm not going to use it because this requires a use effect, the one I was trying to teach next time. So all I need to do is simply do this. If you have won, which means, right? Once you have won, because it's the same thing, right? This is actually winning. So once you win, you also show not only you won, but also shows play again, right? So you'd say 55, yes, you won, play again. Okay. And what would this play again would do? It would basically set everything back to 0, or all the values to be, to previous state, right? And that's it. So let's do that. So there'll be an on click event call on play again. Okay. And we'll have function on play again, right? So here what we'll do a couple of things. When you click on that play again, we'll do a couple of things. First of all, we'll set the enter to be set enter to be null. Okay. then we would say set guessed also to be null. I don't want to set a specific value, right? Because what if I set 0 here and 0 here, which means, so I remove all the values basically. Target I want to keep to be 55, whatever it was, right? The game is already started, so we don't need to change it. Right? All right. The only thing I have to do, which I already know what's going to happen, is the input here. When we change, so let's say once I win, right? Let's say once I type something here, that value is saved in the on entered, right? But if I want to save that back, if I want to, if I change the enter to be null, right? If I want that reflected back, I would have to use in here, I would have to say value equal to entered, which means it reflects back here. Okay, so let's start this. Start, I'm going to enter, let's say 12. It's going to say higher, please. Okay. 56, it's going to say lower, please. 55, it's going to say you won. I would say play again. Oops. What happened? Play again. Oh, you know what? This I want empty. Is that a set entered? Yeah, set entered empty. Okay. Okay, something weird happened. Okay, let's start. 55 entered you. You want to play again, click on here. Okay, this clears up. Then this says higher, please. Why is that? So target is, so what is guessed? Oh, yes. Because, okay. So this condition we need to change, right? The target is 55, and then guessed is basically we made it to null, but it actually considering as a 0 or something. So I would have to add another condition. I would have to say the guessed value has to be not equal to null, right? So guessed, or I can, well, guessed is not equal to null, and target is greater than, which means if the guess is null, then don't show it, right? Which is the condition there. So I want to also put it here, and I also want to put it here, so it doesn't compare, right? So let's try to start this. 55. You want again, click, it cleans it up. You see the play again went inside. I'm gonna again do 55. You want again, you play again like this. Okay, any question on here? So this is pretty important, because otherwise even if I have nothing inside, it's comparing it and it says, oh, higher, please. And this is one of the biggest flaws in JavaScript. If you don't have a value, it automatically tries to think there's a 0. So even though it's null, it's still higher than target. So I have to specifically say, hey, don't count it, don't consider this thing if it's only run it when it's not null, right? Any questions? So this is where I apply multiple condition. the guess cannot be null, and then the target has to be greater than null, guessed, right? And again, you learn this more with practice, right? This thing requires quite a bit of practice. Can't learn this overnight. Okay, so this will be really interesting.
So you are going to place the recording of this lecture.
Yes, I will.
Yeah. And one more thing, like, remember I joined late for the previous videos I was watching,
Yeah.
but now they are not available on Discord.
It's on YouTube. So-
But where can I find the link for the YouTube? Because remember previously all the recorded videos were on the Discord, but not anymore.
Okay, yeah, I think it should still be there, but hold on, let me just give you the YouTube link.
Uh-huh.
It's my personal account, so
Okay, thank you.
it will still be there.
Just
but-
dropped it in the chat. I was
you
watching
dropped
it
it.
earlier. Mhm.
All right, cool. Thank you. Yeah, and if you just go inside in that channel, you know, yeah, let's just go inside quickly. And it's weird to see myself here, but yeah, if you click on the icon, you would see this, you know, all these videos, and they're chronological, so you know, this was last week and the before and all that stuff, right?
Okay, thank you.
Any questions on this one? This is where the fun begins, right? And again, when you're designing this, it's not a rocket science, right? You just have to think, because it's very dynamic, right? Because you're having this situation where, you know, the page is changing automatically, right? And then there are so many different states. Last semester, the one before, we built a game called the snake game, something like this. Snake game, code pen. Where I built something like this, which is a lot of fun. Right? So you can build something like this. This is very dynamic, right? Because you see it shows you the path, and then as it eats the food, it grows. And it's a really fun game to build. I think they use like a pure JavaScript to do that, but you can, you know, build in React, which is much easier than building in pure JavaScript. You see how it grows with the size. And one of the students, actually, I did one time. I built this in a class, but anyway, you know, let's look at the amount of code. It's almost more than 1,000 lines. How many lines are there? 9, yeah, almost 1,000 lines. But you can build this with, I would say, you know, a few hundred lines of code in React. Obviously, there's some a lot of CSS as well, right? It's really, I mean, you know, it looks pretty good. I like it. You know, there must be, maybe there's some React also, but yeah. Anyway, that's you know, a lot of people make a lot of crazy stuff, right? If you think of this way, like what's happening here in this game in terms of state, can you think of something? how do we build this? So if you think of this, consider states and action. Okay, actions are nothing but when I load the page, what should I see, right? When I click on something, what should happen, right? Here, when I start the game, I need to place some food. So this probably location on the screen is some sort of state, right? This I can randomly create. And then there's a starting point where the snake always starts from, and I bet it always starts from here. So if I reload this, it always starts from here. Like the food may change, but the snake always starts from here. And then, the action would be when I click on like arrow keys, right? It changes the direction, right? Which means there is some state, and then there's a loop that keeps thing moving, right? Even though I'm not doing, but so there's a moving part, and then there's a part where it changes the state based on my action. So it may look very complex, but underneath it's not that complex. Okay, but if you're building for the first time, obviously it's gonna require some thinking, right? So whichever game you pick, think in terms of conditional rendering, things you want to have a fixed renders, things you want to have dynamically render, and things like that. Okay. A couple of things you can do here is you can also have implement tries. How do we fail this game? Any ideas? How do I fail this game?
If instead of numbers, like I put letters.
No, it's still not a failing, it's just an error, right? If I enter blah, I'm not failing it, right? Failing means I try running the game and there has to be some sort of number of tries, right? So for, let's say, between 1 and 100, I can give 4 tries. After four tries, you fail. Okay, so we can build something like this. We can say tries. Okay, set tries equal to use state. Okay, and then what we can do is if tries are not equal to null, right? Now I learned from my mistake, so I'm gonna always think about, oh, what if the tries null equal to null, and tries are greater than, let's say, 3, right? Then I would say div you failed. Right? There's something missing here. Oh, I forgot another end. Right? So how do we count tries? Every time I click on this button, which one is that? Guess handle, I can do this. If not try, which means it's 0 or null, tries equal to, well, set tries equal to 1, right? If I haven't tried it and the first time I'm clicking, make it 1, right? Else set tries equal to tries plus 1, right? If it's, let's say, 1 or more, increment it. So let's say 12. Higher, please. All right. 13. Higher, please. 14. Higher, please. 15. You failed, or you lost, not failed. You lost. Right? So just like yeah. And also with this one, you can also once you lose, you don't need to show this, right? So in that case, you can also add this condition here as well, right? And we can say if it's, see this kind of, that's why we would need that use effect, which I'll show you. But for now, we're just going to use something like this. Oops. Okay. Less than, greater than 3. Less than 4. I think 3 is fine. So less than 4, yeah. Right. So let's start this. Start. I'm gonna try 1 time. Higher, please. Twice. Higher, please. 3 times. Higher, please. 4th time. You lost. I mean, you can do way more than that. You can put, again, put that button here. So you don't have to do all of these if we use something called use effect, which I'll cover next time, right? So we can have different states, and right now I don't want to go in, so I'm just using this kind of method, which is very complex, but ultimately once I have use effect, I can control this using much simplicity, I would say. All right. Any questions? All right, Amira. Looks like it's only 2 of us. So
Okay, then I will leave too. I will go through the lecture from
Okay.
the beginning. Okay. And if I need to ask anything, then I'll send you an email.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Okay.
See you next time then. All right.
Okay.
All right, bye.
And all this code will be available in your code sandbox.
Yeah, let me just put it in there so you can copy it.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.